Okay, my name is Maria Peña. I'm going to be doing the interpretation to Spanish. The meeting, el número del meeting que tienen que poner es 166-9900-6833 y el código para el meeting es el 566-93-28-95-2. Por favor, hagan ese número para que puedan estar en el meeting y yo les voy a hacer la interpretación. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Maria. So Maria will be listening in English and then translating for our Spanish-speaking audience. So Maria, I'm going to put you back as an attendee then. And with us also today to the screen on the left of your screen is Jake Sparks. He's our American Sign Language interpreter today. And we really appreciate his being able to sign the program throughout. He will also be signing all of the other guests and panelists. You may notice that I'm wearing a mask today. One of the reasons why we're not holding a community meeting in person here in Mosier and the Dalles in Wasco County is out of a desire to protect both our firefighting community as well as the larger community, given that we're in a time of spread of COVID-19 throughout the country and as well in Oregon. So our panelists are dispersed virtually in various different locations. So we will allow people to unmask if they are isolating in those situations. But you may have noticed that I'm wearing a mask. I will now unmask, which may make it a little bit easier for people to see since I'm not in a location with other individuals. So as we mentioned, this is a meeting for our community. And so we're going to start off with the folks who run our operations section. And they have been here since the beginning of this. So we're going to bring over them, and their picture should appear on your screen below me. So I'd like to welcome Scott Stutzman, Operations Section Chief. He's raised his hand there. And I believe John Flonigan, Operations Section Chief as well. So if you gentlemen would like to begin, overview of the fire and current status to date. If you could unmute them, they can begin. Or do I need to unmute you? I will try to unmute you. There, can you go ahead?
Okay, you can hear me now?
We can. Please proceed. You have about 5 minutes.
Okay, really quick. My name's Scott Stutzman, Operations Chief for the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Blue Team. We came on site here August 13th. At that time, we deployed with 8 task forces of structural firefighters, a total of 109 firefighters from throughout Oregon, and 33 incident management team members, such as myself, for a total of 142 people that came in here to the town of the Dalles, to the command post to help out with the fire. First of all, I just want to say or pay accolades to the Mosier Fire Department, the Dalles Mid-Columbia County, or Mid-Columbia Fire Department, and then also Wasco County Sheriff. I think without their initial attack and attacking the fire, we would have definitely had our work cut out for us. As it was when we came in, obviously with a lot of people, but the work that they did early on in the fire really set the stage for us and this whole incident being successful thus far in able to stop the progression of the fire, along with all the wildland resources, and I'll let John talk to that effect. So currently today, as I said, we started out with 8 task forces. Currently today we have 6. What we did is, or I did is, we rotated those task forces into a day shift. So we had 4 task forces working our day operation period, which was running from 6 to 0600 to to 1800. And then we put a swing shift in there to cover the burning periods, which was at the height of the fire usually from 11 o'clock in the morning until 2300 at night. And if we needed to, we could extend them into the night shift. And then we came with a night shift, starting them later on in the evening at 1800 and working them all the way until 0600 in the morning. By doing this, we were able to overlap crews and staff the fire for 24 hours a day. Currently, I think we're reporting at the last somewhere around 974 acres, I think was the last infrared flight acreage that I saw. And that fire hasn't really progressed beyond that. As far as the structure firefighting component, my job, or our job, the Oregon State Fire Marshal's job, is to come in and provide structure protection, relieve those initial attack crews, the Mosier Fire District, Mid-Columbia, and all those agencies that came in to assist Mosier with the fire suppression efforts. With that, our job is to come out and provide the structure protection to stop the progression of the fire from destroying structures, and to provide structural triage out ahead of the fire, and also do triage and assessment of the surrounding or structures in the fire. So we've been successful for that, or successful with that, and I'm happy to say that things are looking very favorable out there, even though we're under high heat warnings right now. So I'll defer the rest of my time to John Flonigan, the operations for ODF.
Hello, I'm John Flonigan, Operations Sections Chief for the Oregon Department of Forestry. And I'd like to mirror what Scott said. The ODF did a great job here. They had Forest Service from Mount Hood. They had Forest Service for federal firefighters from the National Scenic Area, as well as others. And it really takes a team effort. This fire took off and grew, and we thought we were coming to a much bigger fire than it ended up being. Kind of orient you to the map. This is Mosier Creek Road here. This is Carroll Creek, and then the Osborne Cutoff and Dry Creek. Fire right now is all trail. It's looking good. We've worked hard for the first 100 feet in, and we run both Palm IR, which are thermal cameras to see any heat, and also we have a flight each night from a plane with a thermal camera that can map heat. And so we're feeling real good about that. The fire's not out. You'll see smoke, especially in this area and areas where there's heavier timber, but everything should be interior. Shouldn't be much smoke right on the lines, but you definitely will still see smoke. The other thing is there's a detection camera right here, so it looks right down on the fire, so they keep a good eye on it all the time. As we secure the fire, we'll start reducing some of our resources, but we're still going to be running a full day shift and a full night shift for some time. And even when this team leaves the fire, another organization will take over, and they'll keep patrolling this and make sure it's put to bed safely and that it's taken care of. We've still got plenty of good air support. Like Scott mentioned, we're in a tough weather pattern right now. Besides, the wind change is supposed to come from this way. It's hot, it's dry, it's unstable, and there's lightning forecasted for much of the state. And so that might put some resources, some stress on resources around the state. We may need to ship some of our stuff elsewhere, but nobody will ever forget about this fire. They'll make sure that it's taken care of and put to bed. That's my report.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott and John. Our next speaker, and I'm going to move Scott and John over here. And our next speaker is Wasco County Sheriff Lane Mcgill, talking a little bit more about some of the role of the sheriff. So go ahead, please.
Welcome. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay. I pushed the right button. Well, thanks for having us tonight. First, before I begin, I just wanted to say thanks to the incident management team that's not only coordinated this meeting, but those of you that have come in through operations and logistics and all the firefighters that have come to help citizens of Wasco County. So we're very appreciative of that. I can tell you from the law enforcement standpoint that we received an initial call of just advising that there was a fire on Mosier Creek Road. And as I decided to leave the office, I thought, well, I should probably go to Mosier and maybe assist if we could. And before I got out of downtown The Dalles, I realized that we were going to need everybody to help out with potential evacuations and road closures and different things like that. So we rolled about 7 assets as far as patrol people down into the area as an initial response. One of our jobs is to make sure that we're trying to get as many people notified for evacuations or potential evacuations when we have an incident like this. So our number one priority is to try to the area, do an assessment, and then make a decision about how we're going to notify our citizens as to where they're at and where they need to go. In this particular fire, and it started on Mosier Creek Road, we began to immediately evacuate people from Carroll Road as fast as we could, although we were not able to get to everybody all at once, as well as Venzel Road and up towards Ketchum Road in that direction. We were very, very successful in doing that. We made contact with all the citizens that were there, and they actually were able to evacuate very safely, which was a great thing. Once that was established, as far as getting the initial response taken care of, then we begin to build a program as far as what the fire looks like and what levels of evacuation that we would have for our citizens. For those of you that are aware and following our Facebook page, there's 3 levels of evacuation. There's level 1, which is get ready. Level 2 is get set, and level 3 is go. We begin to build trigger points in based on the fire as to where those 1, 2, and 3 levels are at. And if you'll follow our Facebook page, as well as any of the other public information reports that's coming from the Department of Forestry, as well as our office as well, would be, there's maps there and stuff like that, and tells you where you're at, and you can see those are all color coded. I'm happy to say that everybody's doing a great job as far as our citizens go, as far as getting out of the area when they need to get out of the area. We have had to increase our patrols on the fire because we've had a lot of people that are just driving through the area, and that creates an unsafe condition for some of the firefighters that are trying to work on the line. So you'll see roadblocks or road checks at Carroll Road and Dry Creek Road, as well as Mosier Creek and Wilson Road. And you'll also see them at Dry Creek and Osborne Cutoff Road. Basically, you'll be stopped by a police officer that's there to verify that your address is there, and 1 or 2 things will happen. We'll either allow you to go to your residence and return from that location, or if we feel it's safe enough, we can allow you to stay there for a period of time to obtain any type of like clothes or medications or important documents or anything like that. If you're not escorted, then we'll ask you for your driver's license, so proof of address, so we can allow you to go in and out. That way we know where you're at all times. That's really pretty much all I have right now. I know there was a couple of questions. Not exactly sure if I answered those, but if there's questions later, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Great. Thank you so much, Sheriff Mcgill. I will now introduce our next speaker is Nadine Mccrindle. She's the Executive Director for Central and Eastern Oregon Chapter of the American Red Cross. So welcome, Nadine, and I'll move our sheriff back over here, and you can unmute and go ahead and tell folks about what the American Red Cross is doing here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all and be able to provide an update on the activities of the American Red Cross. Following the evacuation order on Wednesday evening, we had opened 2 shelters in the Dalles. I will say this has probably been a very difficult time for the community. and the Red Cross is here to share a little bit of hope and comfort, but most of all, we're here to help. At the moment, we're taking care of essential needs like food and shelter, but we're also providing some emotional support and identifying additional resources for any longer term recovery. The way we respond to disasters has changed due to COVID-19, so not unlike all of the other departments that are out helping right now. It's certainly added an additional layer of complexity to our responses. The most noticeable change is we are now prioritising using hotels, and we're providing rooms to help keep people safe and comfortable after leaving their homes. We have trained volunteers on the ground providing meals, helping with any immediate needs such as toiletries or helping get access to prescription medications that may have been left behind. Yesterday afternoon, we consolidated the 2 shelters and we now have everyone at the same location, which is the Shiloh Inn in the Dells. I spoke with the shelter manager just now, and in the last 24 hours, we have had some additional families arrive, and we now stand with just over 30 people in our care. As we've now started to get a clearer idea of damage to homes, we have established a team of caseworkers to help with recovery plans and to start looking to the future. We will connect one-on-one with people to create those recovery plans, help navigate paperwork, and if needed, locate help from other organisations and community partners. You do not need to have stayed at a Red Cross shelter to receive help from us. Our focus is to ensure that people get the assistance that they need to be able to get back up on their feet. We know that this community is very generous and want to do everything they can to help. Donations of clothing and household items right now due to COVID is just too risky for a spread of infection. And so we would ask that people perhaps consider making a financial donation instead to help support disaster relief efforts. These donations help utilise or get help to people straight away, helps replace prescription medication, like I mentioned, or prescription glasses, and helps with work like we are doing right now, which is providing food and shelter and relief supplies. The other thing I wanted to talk about today is that we want to let the community know that our disaster services are free and available to anyone. Just as wildfires don't discriminate, the Red Cross doesn't discriminate in who we help. We won't ask for paperwork or documentation. If you need assistance because of the wildfire, you are welcome at a Red Cross shelter. Finally, I'd like to share a phone number for people to contact the Red Cross. This number is to our team on the ground here in the Dells. You can speak directly to us and ask questions about the shelter or any recovery support or services that you need. That number is 503 318 6506. I'll repeat it again, it's 503 318 6506. And that about wraps up our efforts at the moment. I'd like to remind everyone that we are here to help. And with that, I'll hand it over to Chief Palmer. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nadine. And our next panelist is going to be, as Nadine mentioned, is going to be Robert Palmer from Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue. And let me bring Bob over to, there he is. Bob, you can go ahead and unmute at this point and start your camera.
Can you see me and hear me? There we go.
You can.
Okay, very good. So good afternoon, everybody. So I also have Chief Mike Renault from Mosier Fire District with me as well. He showed up, and so he'll be involved with me. I'll start though. So as Sheriff Mcgill described the events that he talked about leading up to the fire, I'll just talk about what we were doing at the time of this particular fire. We were actually working another 2-acre fire out on Interstate 84. Actually, that was we had responded with Mosier and Oregon Department of Forestry as well. So we were busy working that fire when one of the Mosier firefighters came up to me and said that they were needing to be released from the scene to be able to respond to a report of a fire that they just received on Carroll Road. And they said they'd had multiple calls, which certainly got me to thinking about what that was going to crop up to be, since one of my division chiefs and Chief Renault were actually in Sherman County on another detail, and I was a little concerned for him. So I was, as I had looked to the south about 15 minutes later, I saw a column of smoke coming up, and realized that this was going to be a more serious event than what we were bargaining for, as we were certainly out of position. So at that point, I broke loose from the scene as well, because I function as the Fire Defense Force Chief for Wasco County, and I got to thinking seriously about the fact that there were certainly going to be structures in the way and threatened by this particular fire, the way it was looking. So, like Sheriff Mcgill, I responded to that location, and I was in contact with my division chief and Chief Renault, who was aware and responding back to town. And then I had also made contact with Sheriff Mcgill, who was already involved in triaging and setting up the area, the levels for evacuation. So things were already in play. From that perspective, when I got up there, I realized that things were becoming very serious. And so I tied in then with Unified Command, of which Mike Chief Renault was already in that location. So we started working on trying to figure out how we were going to communicate with the state to start looking at a configuration request. And he was working on, he had set up Unified Command with both over in Department of Forestry and U.S. Forest Service, and started, had already called for structural resources to come into the area. So things were moving forward. He was working very hard and very efficiently, as well as all the resources to keep this fire from spreading and creating, impacting that community out there. So that said, in reference to the local resources, very, very high commendations for maintaining and keeping that fire within a specific perimeter. It could have been much more impacting than it was in reference to the way the drainage is lined up, along with the wind and the topography. So one heck of a job that was done by the local resources, along with all of the mutual aid resources as well. In reference to the configuration aspect of things, high commendations go to the state in reference to their responsiveness, and it takes time to request a configuration response, but I think this one was a record in getting resources moving forward and getting the configuration enacted as quickly as possible to get resources here the next day to be able to provide us with the systems to be able to keep the fire contained to its to the footprint that it was is currently in. Actually, it grew to about 800 acres. I think it's about 900. A lot of that has to do with some of the tactics that are used in reference to burning out to keep it from spreading. So for the most part, it was maintained within a specific footprint, perimeter, and it was certainly not allowed to spread beyond that. And that's certainly commendable to not only the local resources, but all of the state resources, both Oregon Department of Forestry and State Fire Marshal that came in and assisted us with that over the next few days. Mother Nature is a very formidable opponent, I will say, and she doesn't give up easily in many cases, but in this case we were able to succeed and keep impact to that area at a minimum. As far as the public goes, once again, high commendations to the public and the citizens up there in communicating with Sheriff Mcgill moving forward with the level 3 evacuations. As I drove through that area, people were moving out in an orderly fashion. And, you know, there was really not a lot of panic. They knew what they had to do. I think, you know, people in our communities and within the county, specifically the entire county, are very well aware of what fire can do. And at that point, they knew how they needed to react to be able to make sure that they, as well as everybody else, was safe in that area. I commend everybody as well for their vigilance during the wildland season, specifically right now it's hot, but you know, when it's cool, we have windier conditions. When it's hot, it's drier and things get ignite more easily as well. So people are very well aware of that. They keep their guard up, and we encourage everybody to keep their guard up. And now, even though this fire is pretty much out, I'll say, it's still being tended to, it's still being watched. There are still areas of concern, but for the most part, I think we're feeling more comfortable that this fire is going to remain under control. But once again, we don't want to let our guards down. There are still certainly some challenges ahead in reference to the wildland season. It's not over with yet, so we want to all be very careful about that. I think there was a question in reference to defensible space and how can I protect my home from wildfire. I'm going to defer to Chief Renault on that and let him explain that. We were talking about it. He's got it pretty well drilled in, so I'm going to let him talk.
Okay, now Bob, in order for him to be heard, you're probably going to need to switch places.
Yeah, no problem.
So sorry about that. The masks really do muffle. So if you can speak up and maybe reintroduce yourself, those masks do reduce the volume a lot.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, speak as loud as you can.
Perfect. So again, my name is Chief Renault, the fire chief with Mosier Fire District. And everything that Chief Palmer said, I have to echo all that. With everybody's help and support, we definitely kept it in the box for that fire. And just a couple of things really quick on initial attack. With all the volunteers and all the mutual aid equipment that came over, we had about 80 firefighters on the line until we started getting resources turning us out on the very next day when the state arrived for the mobilization. So again, we truly appreciate everybody's help and support there. On stuff for the defendable space and some of the things that we look at, usually while I'm out and about in the district and I'm issuing burning permits, I usually have my Firewise maps, and I usually go over the Firewise maps with homeowners and looking at ways that they can better make their property defendable. And some of the things that we look at is obviously making sure that the roof's clear and the gutters are clear of needles and stuff like that. That the area around the house for at least about 30 feet out is, if you're going to have trees, just have them scattered trees, and then the lawn is actually kept clean and mowed. Keep the wood piles about 30 feet from structures, and then keep burnable materials from under the porches and decks and stuff like that. So if people have lattice work, we talk about maybe getting some wire mesh to put in there to help keep the embers out. And then we usually also hand out the Ember Aware pamphlet just to help educate the public where embers really go when it comes to a house or a structure when we're having the actual fire front coming through of where those embers actually go. Other things we talk about is making sure that you have sheds or outside buildings on your property, at least keep them 30 feet away from any other existing structure or primary structure. Then we also talk about when you're going to do burn piles and or burn barrels, the proper and the safe way to manage and mitigate that, and for the proper time frame of when to do that. That's all I have on the Firewise stuff, unless somebody has any other questions to go with.
Okay, we'll take questions at the end. So if you can hang with us for a little bit more, we have a few other speakers to get through. Thank you very much to Chief Bob Palmer and Chief Mark Renault. Is that how you pronounce that, for Mosier Fire Department? I'm gonna bring you guys back to attendees, and our next guest that's joining us is our Wasco County Commissioner Scott Hagee. So we're pleased to have you with us. And go ahead, Scott. You have the most interesting background today of all of our speakers. So.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks again for having us. I just want to say, kind of echo what you've heard from everyone else on behalf of Wasco County. We certainly appreciate the response from both our local folks in the fire protection people, as well as the state and federal resources. We very much appreciate it. It was, as I sit at the top of where I live, at the top of 7 Mile Hill, so I had a pretty good seat for this one. In fact, it was the first time I've actually received a evacuation notice in the 20 years we've lived up here. We're certainly sorry for the loss of property in this fire. There has been a significant loss. I think the structural loss is, I don't know, 30 or 40 structures. There's been a number of homes lost. These are people's homes where they live. Very big impact on them. We're happy. I don't believe there's been certainly any loss of life, and hopefully not many, if any, injuries. But fire season is here.
It definitely is here, Commissioner. I'm not sure if you finished your marks. There's a bit of a
choose to live out in these rural areas. It's something that we have to deal with. And many people have talked about resources. I'll just kind of show one here. Actually, you probably can't see it, but it's actually, ODF has its 6 steps to wildlife protection. This one is in the interface area is extreme. That's where I live. And I think it's important for everyone to understand and take that seriously, and take it seriously before fire season, and make sure you're prepared. I just wanted to let people know, for those people that have had structures lost, Wasco County works from a planning standpoint to try to help those folks as much as possible. We do that by making sure that our rules, when you have a loss of a structure in a fire, are hopefully as simple as possible, as easy and as low cost as possible. But I would encourage anyone who's lost a structure in this fire or any fires to make sure that they move and talk to the planning office about what happened and what options they have for replacing that structure. It's important to know what you can and can't do, and make sure that you raise your hand as soon as possible. So our goal is to help you as much as possible to deal with the loss that you've had. I did have a friend that sent me something. I thought I would read a quote from him. He said, after 30 years of living here, but managing to evade the main fires, we finally got clobbered. And he did get clobbered, and his family, in this fire, and it's very sad. But I, again, would encourage everyone to do as much as you can beforehand to make your property defensible. It is possible. You may not be able to have as many trees close to your house, but it's certainly worth it when a fire like this comes through. So with that, I will turn it back over, but appreciate the opportunity to be here, and certainly our thoughts and prayers out to all the folks that had losses in this fire.
Very much appreciated, Commissioner Hagee. We have 2 panelists next that will be joining us. Mariana Ruiz-Temple from OSFM. We're going to bring you over, and then also joining her will be Bill Hunt, the agency representative for the Oregon Department of Forestry, and Mariana Ruiz-Temple is representing the Oregon State Fire Marshal's office. So with that, I'm going to bring our commissioner back over so he can enjoy listening to their comments. So Bill and Mariana, I see you've unmuted. Bill, if you can start your camera, if that's possible, we'll let you go ahead and begin your remarks, please.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariana Ruiz-Temple, and I serve as Chief Deputy State Fire Marshal. Just to maybe talk a little bit about the Conflagration Act, the Oregon governor declared the Conflagration Act on Thursday and allowed the Office of State Fire Marshal to bring to your community resources from around the state to help the suppression efforts, primarily focused on structural protection. So on this fire, serving your community, you have firefighters from the Central Oregon area, the Central Coast area, and the metro area in Willamette Valley. We're currently in unified command with the Oregon Department of Forestry. The state of Oregon serves the people of Oregon in what we call the complete and coordinated system. And that's a system by which we work with Oregon Department of Forestry and all of our local landowners, cooperators, fire departments to help protect communities in times of need, such as this, the Mosier Creek fire. We all know, and certainly you as the community knows better than anybody, how devastating fire can be in this area. And my deepest condolences for those that have been affected by this fire. What I think is important for you to know is that we are feeling good about this fire. This fire is not out, but we do feel good about the fire behavior, the amount of firefighters that we have here to continue to keep this fire in check, and the containment lines that we have. But we do expect that you will see firefighters on this fire throughout August. We're feeling good about it because of the great work that you, the local fire departments, have done already to date on this fire, the local ODF district. So just wanted to clarify that you will see firefighters here throughout the remainder, probably of August, and making sure that we keep this fire in check. And lastly, what I'd like to leave you with, it's a very important, I guess, prevention message, is that we are still in fire season. We know it's hot out. We know conditions are ripe for more fire. And I just ask that we all do our part, that we remain vigilant. Fires, human-caused fires, are up 10% this year, and that I just encourage all of us to practice safe fire practices and believe in fire safety. Thank you.
Thanks, Mariana. Bill, if you want to unmute, we'll go ahead and get your remarks. For folks watching on Facebook, Bill's camera may not be synced up as well, so it's moving slowly. It's just his camera's lagging slightly.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Just want to echo some of the things Mariana said. One thing that I think is apparent is that, fire knows no boundaries. So there are jurisdictions locally, fire departments, Oregon Department of Forestry protects private forest land. So there's structural, rural, wildland fighters that are, called for initial attack, as has been described. But once a fire exceeds local capability, we have the coordinated system that allows us to bring other resources. For example, ODF, Central Oregon District here brought in an ODF team in concert with the State Fire Marshal's team. And through our resource availability and targeting land fires, coupled with local, rural, structural, and law enforcement entities that are responsible for structural fire protection, we can deliver a total product to a community. Now that sounds rosy, and obviously fires are tough, especially this time of year. Heroic efforts were made by the local folks from those entities that have been described. But we are in a good position to continue to provide and suppress and contain and control the fire. So I just want to echo thanks to the local community and the local entities that are responsible for day-to-day protection. And I'm so thankful that we have this broader system that allows us to jointly come in with other folks and other agencies and so on, to deliver the product necessary for these large fires. So with that, I may take questions later, but thank you.
Thank you, Bill, very much. Our two panelists now will be joining us. Joe Hessel, who is with ODF, and Joe is the co-incident commander on this event. And Joe is with our Oregon Department of Forestry's Incident Management Team 1. And I'm going to try and bring in, Joe, if you want to go ahead and get started, I'm going to bring in your co-incident commander here in just a second.
Okay, good afternoon, folks. My name, as Jim said, is Joe Hessel, and I'm an incident commander with one of the Oregon Department of Forestry's incident management teams. And on this particular incident, I'm one of two incident commanders, and perhaps you can see my counterpart, Scott Majors. Scott is the incident commander with the OSFM Blue Team. And on this particular incident, we're working together in what we call unified command, where we join the two teams together and align our missions to accomplish one goal, if you will. And it's working very well. We've been through this before, and it's a very successful model and in fact, you're seeing the effects of that on the landscape, I believe, now. just real briefly, and if you haven't heard this come out yet, wanted to be clear who we're working for here. On the ODF side, we're working for the Central Oregon District, Oregon Department of Forestry. On the structural side, we're working for Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue, Mosier Fire Department, and Wasco County. And so we're addressing both the wildland and the structural, private property infrastructure threats, all with one team here at this point, and those 4 different entities out there. Let's see, our mission, I think, given to us by the folks we're working for is very simple and very clean, which is something we like to work with. We're protecting and minimizing damage to natural resources, such as timber and grazing lands, and minimizing damage to structures, other types of private property and infrastructure as well. And I think in my mind, that boils down to keeping the size of the fire as small as we can. That's the simplest way to accomplish that mission. And of course, safety is our highest priority. So with everything we do in trying to get that mission done, we're putting forth safety as our top priority. I might just touch on one in the sense that we have a traditional mission, if you will, at this stage. We are in non-traditional times. I think you would all agree. And so we're doing some things differently to address the COVID-19 related prevention and mitigation and exposure to our firefighters in the community. And this public meeting being done virtually is a good example of that. Our firefighters on the line and the tactics and strategies we're using to actually fight the fire are very similar and traditional in that sense. But behind the scenes and in the camp life and support, much of what we're doing has to do with best management practices that we've been planning to implement for quite a while. And one that we're quite proud of is the use of what we're referring to as a COVID module in camp with us. We have a health liaison and a couple of technicians that are specifically assigned to deal with COVID mitigation, prevention, and exposure in camp. And it's a model or a concept that Oregon developed and that we're very proud of. And it's helping us be successful on the firefighting front. And so I'll pause there and turn this over to Scott. So Scott, take it from here.
Okay, Scott, if you want to unmute, there you go.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate teeing that up for me. As everybody said, you know, it takes a lot of people to come together and put a fire out and manage an incident such as these. Fortunately, this incident was, while devastating to a lot of people, turned out to be a lot better than it could have been. And it's been said many times before this, and I'm kind of batting clean up here, but I'd be remiss if I did not mention not only thank you, it seems a little bit contrite, but also, but rather to acknowledge the actions of the men and women of Wasco County, Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue, and Mosier Fire Department, and your local Oregon Department of Forestry, based right here in Grants Pass. If it wasn't for their efforts and what they did for us, this fire would have been a lot worse. It had all the potential for that. They really gave us a package that allowed us to come in, take the work that they did and add to that, and that's really where the success was. But I also tell you, I have such a great honor to work with Joe as my partner on this, but over 750 other fire professionals, both within the wildland arena and within the structural arena within the state of Oregon. I mentioned to Joe today, we were talking about this fire and the number of people were here, and it's really like Oregonians helping Oregonians, and we're both very proud of that. And the men and the women that came in to assist you, they worked hard. They worked hard under difficult circumstances, not so much the fire as much as the added burden of managing the COVID response and keeping themselves safe. So when they return to their home and families, they don't take that with them. And also keeping your community safe. That was a very big priority for us, and it continues to be. So, you know, I'm gonna close out by saying, I'm sorry we had to be here, but we are honored to have had the opportunity to help such a fine community. And thank you for your kindness and your support while doing that.
Thank you, Scott. That concludes our presentations from our speakers. Now we get to go to your questions. So we'll start, I think, with some of our operations folks, and I'm going to bring them back into our camera view so that they can address a couple of questions that came up from folks online. So if we can get those folks back in. If not, there they are. So 2 questions for you, gentlemen. Basic question I think might have been answered, but essentially, is this fire out or not? And that might lead into the next question, which is, can you explain sort of what you mean by the fire being lined, and what do you mean when you say it's contained? Not everyone's as familiar with those fire terms. So how would you explain those to a lay person? And if you can unmute, then the audience can hear your answers as well. Jamie, if you can help them with that. We also have another question for you as well when you get a chance to unmute. Someone was also asking about, in fact, this one might have already been answered. So it was whether any headway was made on the fire today. I think one of our other speakers.
Can you hear us?
We can. So if you can address those 3 questions. Was any headway made on the fire today? Is that fire out or not? And can you explain the difference between a fire being lined and what does it mean if it's the percentage contained versus percentage lined?
The fire is not out. It is lined. That means there's either roads or dozer line or hand.
Just move closer to the map because they can't see the fire in the split screen. Yeah, so there you go. Now they can see the fire. That's much better. Thank you.
There's either, like here, there's roads on the edge of the fire, or there's dozer trails, or there's hand lines all the way around the fire. That's the fire line. It's where we have dirt to the burnt fuel to separate the burnable fuel from the fire. There is still some, interior things burning. We have some different terms like controlled and contained. The fires, we don't expect growth from it right now, but with the weather that we're having, it is possible. We're keeping a good close eye on it, and we're staffed very heavy to make sure it doesn't grow anymore. And the percent contained is kind of the way we feel as far as the percent where it's definitely not going to be growing anymore. And what was the other question?
The other question was, I think you've explained containment versus line, whether the fire is growing or making any headway. The third question here really is more about air support. Someone noticed there had been a lot of air activity, and today, Saturday, they did not seem to notice air support and wanted to know why that might be the case.
Well, there's a couple of reasons. And first, the helicopters, the air support is very expensive. So if you have a stump hole in the middle of the fire that's not threatening the lines, using helicopters to mop that up isn't a very efficient use of the money. But the bigger issue is helicopters can only fly so many hours a day. So we try not to use them in the morning because the greater fire danger is in the afternoon and evening. So we'll save those hours for later on. I'm sure they've got some ships up now, but they are available. They're on the airport and could be in the air in 5 or 10 minutes and on the fire scene in just minutes. So they're there. They're ready if the crews need them, and things are looking good.
Okay, I think that actually answered that question. I will now introduce our panelists from the American Red Cross for the next question that we have. And Nadine, if you can hear me, I'll go ahead and read this question for you. Someone wanted to know, you mentioned about cash probably being a better form of donation given this time of COVID. And someone wanted to know, is there a percent roughly of donations that go directly to the victims of these disasters, fires, and other things? Do you have a percentage breakdown roughly if someone made a cash donation?
With the donations that are made to the Red Cross, we can say that about 90 cents in the dollar goes towards the disaster relief efforts. In terms of where that money goes, whether it goes to individuals to provide shelter or to provide feeding. It really depends on the disaster.
Okay, but roughly about 90% is what you're, okay.
90 cents in the dollar goes directly towards supporting the disaster.
Very good, thank you. All right, I will put you back there for the next question, where we're going to bring forward our local fire department gentlemen, the chiefs there. If I can get Bob Palmer back. Let's see, Bob, you are there. So let's bring you back to get this next question, which is, Mary would like to know how to make a home safe and what can they do to promote or to prepare, excuse me, for a wildland fire. And also, do you have any information about sprinklers? If you do not have sprinklers in your home, where can a person go? So how do you make your home safe from a wildfire that might be similar to the one we just experienced? And what can you do to prepare for the next one? And what about sprinklers for your home? And if you want to unmute, we can hear your answer.
Now I'm unmuted. Once again, I'll talk about the sprinklers. I'll let Chief Renault speak to the defensible space aspects of things. So as far as sprinklers in your home, it's basically residential fire sprinklers. Typically, obviously, residential fire sprinklers aren't necessarily going to help you from a defensible space aspect of things. But they certainly will help protect you, and we encourage them highly. They protect you from fires that may occur within your home. They're designed for not necessarily putting the fire out, but allowing the occupants to escape. Typically, the home safety sprinkler system will cost in the area of about, as I recall, about $2 a square foot within your home. And you certainly can get the benefits from your insurance company if you have those in your home as well. And you might get a reduction in your insurance premium as a result of it. I'm not going to guarantee that, but I think that they certainly do look at that from a fire safety perspective. So you can contact a company that deals in those. You can probably find them on the internet. You can actually come into the fire station, and we can research that with somebody. Our fire marshal would certainly be willing to help an individual research that, and if they're interested in putting one in their home. You can do it one of two ways. If you're building a home, you can have them installed. You can also have them retrofitted, and it is entirely possible to do. And they don't look like a normal sprinkler system that you would see in an industrial setting. They're actually very aesthetically pleasing as far as that goes. I mean, you're not going to look. It's not going to look like something that is appalling within your structure. And they certainly are a company to know, especially along with smoke detectors as well. We encourage smoke detectors and sprinkler systems in homes if at all possible. So does that answer the question?
I think so.
Okay, and then Mike or Chief Renault, I'll let him speak to.
Okay, if you want to switch places with Mark, he can get up close to the microphone.
Next places. Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, I think as long as you're speaking close there, that should be good.
Okay, perfect. So again, going back for defendable space, again, some of the things that we look at is making sure that, you have wood piles away from your house. You're doing housekeeping and good housekeeping when it comes to needles and stuff like that in the gutters and along the roof lines and in the ridge lines. Along with that as well is making sure that you're keeping your grass mowed, it's kept clean, green, it's kept watered. Some other things that we look at, some of the other things we look at is addressing as well. Some of the times it's not just about making it all defendable space, but making it to where we can locate you in the case of an emergency or something like that. Makes it easier for us when we're going down counting residences and things of that nature. Other things we do, and that's why it's really important, if you ever have questions, we usually go out and do on-site visits with people. And if there's stuff that we can't do, we usually try to encourage them to contact the Oregon Department of Forestry, as they usually have mitigation money available, whether it's sweat equity or grant, to help do fire-wise mitigation on their property.
Very good, Bob and Mark. Thank you so much for answering that question. So with that, I think I have wanted to present an opportunity for folks on the call here today. If you have other questions you think about later, maybe tonight, a question comes to you, please let us know here at Fire Information for the Mosier Creek Fire. You can leave something on our Facebook account, which is at Mosier Creek Fire 2020 on Facebook, and we will work to get answers for your questions. You can also call our public information line, which is for members of the community. If you would rather just have friends or relatives that aren't on Facebook and you'd rather just leave a message for us, that number, and I'll ask 503-316-0796 should be that public information line.